Hi, and welcome to this interview with Jennifer Chapman. I'm Elle Ingalls. I'm the host of this series, this pressure-free living expert series, and the creator of the pressure-free method, which is an on-the-go stress management method. And I'm so glad to have my colleague here, Jennifer Chapman. Jennifer is, she's got such an interesting story, such an interesting past, and that informs and brings into what she does as a coach, not just individuals, but also with business teams and working in corporations. So, Jennifer, welcome.
Thanks so much for having me, Al. I'm looking forward to this.
Yeah. So go ahead and introduce yourself and tell us a bit about yourself to get us started here.
Yeah, so Jennifer Chapman, everyone calls me Jiff. You can see that in my name on my screen. I've had that nickname since I was 2, so that's what everyone knows me as, and I've had that name as long as I can remember. It's way more fun for me than Jennifer,
It is
actually. So
fun.
feel free to use it.
I
Yeah.
will use it then.
Yeah. Yeah, from Indianapolis. So born and raised in Indianapolis. Went to Ball State after high school and got a marketing degree and then went into the world of sales. So I spent 10 years in the beer, wine, and spirits industry as a sales representative in a couple different divisions, a key account manager, and then a state rep for a brand for a year. And then I went to a company called Centos. So I went into the corporate world in 2015, and that was really my first leap of faith. Leaving an industry that I was so comfortable in of 10 years to not only a whole different industry, just a whole different level of sales. I mean, it was the type of sales that, I learned in college and was terrified to do, which was the door to door and cold calling, which, it was a numbers game. And
Wow.
so I remember telling the VP in my final interview that I was terrified to say yes and fail. I said those words to him, and
Wow.
he said, "Yeah, but what if you say yes and succeed?" I was like, well, that's a profound thought. I'm gonna trust you. And I'm so thankful I did. And I hit President's Club my first year there. So really at the time I thought this is it. Like I was such an achiever. I mean, I tied a lot of my worth for my whole adult career until when I realized it was not that. But for a long time, I tied myself to achieve, and I was an athlete growing up and all that. So
Mhm, mhm.
yeah, and then left corporate, went into home health for a couple of years, and then we can kind of talk about what got me into the world of coaching. But I've now owned my own coaching and speaking and facilitation business for 3 years.
Oh, wow. I'm so curious, like wine, beer, and spirits. I coached a sales team. It was all the women of the sales team for RNDC. Are you familiar with RNDC?
My husband works there.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I coached the whole sales team of women from them.
Cool.
It was really fun. It was really
That
fun.
is so fun. What in
Yeah.
in your state was it
In
just?
Michigan. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
On the east side. Yeah. Yeah.
Very good.
Yeah. Fun. So you've been a coach for 3 years, and I was just celebrating 3 years is great. Like you made it after the 1 year mark and you made it to three as a
Yeah.
solopreneur. And for those of you who don't know about entrepreneurship, it is very hard and very tough. And we have seasons and to weather through the seasons and keep our I want to say keep our nose to the grindstone, but it's almost like keeping our nose above water and like looking out and knowing that we can still achieve. I'm actually celebrating my 15th anniversary of my business tonight. So 15 years on April 15th.
Congratulations. Yeah, it's
Um,
huge. It gives a
it's
lot of us
huge.
hope.
I
Yeah.
forgot about it till we were talking before we came on here. Um, so yeah, so how did you get to the coaching? This is a really amazing story. So I'm so excited for you to share.
Yeah, I'll try and just share the highlights, I guess. So as I was transitioning roles in 2017 at Centos, I was switching positions, switching teams. It was a lot of change. I'd put a lot of pressure on myself, and we can potentially talk about that since that's the theme of your business and what you talk about. But I put a lot of pressure on myself to be really good, and I knew I wasn't going to hit another President's Club. And so I trusted my manager at the time so much that he said, let's change it up. Let's do something different. And I said yes. And so that first day that I was going to meet him out in the field and learn some of the territory, I woke up and my body basically said, not today. And long story short, I suffered a major stroke at 34. So in March 30th
34.
of 2017, my life changed.
Wow. At 34 years old. Now, there's something significant about that 34 too, right?
There is. So I'll share in June of 2016, when I knew I'd hit President's Club for the first time, I turned 34 2 days later. And so I was on this emotional professional high and also this relief of like, I did it, and I'm elated. And then I turned 34 and had this epiphany of my mom was 34 when she passed away. I had no idea that she was so young when she passed away. I just knew I was 11
Mm.
and I lost her very suddenly and tragically, truthfully, in the blink of an eye. And so I carried that with me this whole time, not knowing how much it was stored, a lot of that pain and grief was still stored in me. So it has made a lot of sense to reflect back now why I put all of my unhealed grief at least out into an achieving form, I guess, because I grew up, I immediately played tennis, competitive tennis, and cared a lot about winning, was not a great loser. And then I go into the world of sales where I love to win and hate to lose. And so I had that moment of turning 34 and that carried with me that, those next 9 months. And so then to have a stroke at 34, I did not realize that we were the same age until about a year later when I was physically had recovered and went back into the world of sales thinking it was going to feel the exact same as it did before. And yet, of course, my brain was not even close to healed. It was still, there was a lot of mental and emotional work to still be done. And that's when I hired my first life coach because I was not okay. And that's through the work with her was when I realized, oh, I was the same age as my mom. She didn't make it and I did. Why? Why did I make it?
Oh, oh, wow. Wow. That is what you just said is it just pinged on me big time. My father lost his only brother, drowning, trying to save his friend from drowning, and they both drowned. My father was 16, his brother was 12. When my father tells me at 18, takes me to a private dining room and tells me that he's actually half adopted, that my grandfather's not my biological grandfather. He never knew his biological father. Then he breaks down in tears and says, "So now you understand. The wrong one died."
Mm.
Because his younger brother was the natural son of both his parents. So
Oh my.
that I'm like, I just couldn't even imagine that my father was hanging on to that. But look what you
Right.
just said.
Right.
It's
Right.
amazing. It's amazing. Yeah.
Thank
Wow.
you. And really the biggest lesson that having a stroke taught me was that I had to go back and heal from that loss at 11. And I didn't know that then. I mean, I started to do the work with my coach in 2018. Like I said, it was about a little over a year after. So there was a lot of work to be done still from recovery of stroke from a mental and emotional capacity. And it wasn't until 2021 when I had left corporate, went into home health at the time to get out of the grind and the pressure of, high level sales. And when COVID happened, it kind of allowed, like all of us, allowed us to slow all the way down and kind of, start to question what am I really supposed to do? Well, at least it did for me. Like, is this my opportunity to be able to do for others what my coach did for me? She was such a game changer for me.
Yeah.
And the certification that I chose was one of the most powerful, most healing and transformational experiences I've ever had in my life.
Oh,
I mean, it
incredible.
was it was 11 months long. There was 200 of us all over the world going through this program. And I thought I was saying yes to credibility as a coach and tools. What are the tools I'm supposed to support clients with? And yet I watched 200 of us all over the world week after week do the work, right? We were, people would be live demoed on these calls. We would peer coach. And that was I had the most powerful coaching experience of my life in September of 21 when I got gifted this session with a coach as part of their team. And she beautifully guided me to meet my 11-year-old self and
Mhm.
talk to her, and not only me talk to her, she had, I had to say what my 11-year-old self needed to hear from my mom.
Right, right, right. Wow.
Incredible moment.
Incredible. Just incredible. Wow. And when you say you had a full stroke, you had so much recovery to do. Like
Yeah.
it was a
Yeah.
lot, right?
Yeah. I had three blood clots in my brain, and they didn't know until about a year and a half later, because I think that was part of the stress and anxiety of why I wasn't okay. Um, months later, even though physically I had gone through about 5 months of rehab, like PT, OT, speech, because it affected my balance and it affected my ability to swallow. And I still have vision loss to this day. So that's my biggest deficit. I don't have about 45% of my left vision over here.
Mm.
I've adapted well to all of that. It was the mental and emotional roller coaster ride that you go on, because with your brain, people don't see it, right? You don't see the physical deficits. A lot of stroke survivors you may see, have a weak side, or don't
Mhm.
have use of an arm or leg, or have voice struggles. I mean, there's so much that can happen with stroke. I'm very blessed physically. I think because I always took care of myself and was an athlete and worked out, and that was the easy part.
Mhm.
It was why am I crying in my car every day? And yet I'm still
Yeah.
trying to sell at a high level, close accounts and talk to buyers and make these big decisions. And I am not okay. And I don't, at the time, I didn't know why. So there was a lot of mental and emotional work to do. And that's having the resource and support of a coach whom I did not know, right? It was my family and friends could only take me so far. I had a really great support system, a
Right.
supportive spouse. And yet I at the time needed someone that was non-biased, non-judgmental, held the safe space for me, gave me permission to cry, because I was the one saying, I don't want to be crying anymore. I'm done crying.
Right. Right.
I
Yeah.
would apologize, right? Like I would sit in these sessions and cry, and I would be so frustrated that I'm crying and that I feel like I can't stop. And she's like, your body's telling you it's got to come up and out. It's
Wow.
okay.
Yeah. It's
And how
so
many,
interesting. Yeah. That um people often say to me, especially if I'm going to work with their child, whether it's college, high school, even middle school, they'll say, I know all of this. Like I know what but they need to hear somebody else. They need
Mhm.
a different support system in there. And it is judgment free. Like that's what coaches get to do. We get to provide that judgment free, unconditional support. It's a game changer for people because I've had some people say, nobody has ever given me that before.
Yeah.
Like nobody's ever just really given me that. And that's a gift. So it's really cool that you experience that and now you do it. It's really cool.
Yeah, she was a gift in my life, and I'm so grateful. She's a mentor and friend to this day. I can still call her, and I've done work alongside her with some of her teamwork that she does. But she really just asked me a couple questions, just like coaches do,
Mhm.
right? The answers are all within us. We
Yeah.
just have to be, from a coaching standpoint, ask the really great questions to have them tap into those answers. And I just want to share this because it was profound.
Yeah.
It was like session one or two. Again, I'm an emotional uh, mess in this coffee shop. We're sitting in the corner of this coffee shop, and she's getting to learn my story. And as I'm sharing it, she said, "Did you ever ask yourself why me?" And I sat for a minute, and I don't remember saying those words. I could at least acknowledge I don't think I'm sitting here saying why me, but I could
Mhm.
see everyone else around me say, why Jennifer? She was the healthiest person in our family. Like, it was pretty shocking because we didn't know family history of stroke or anything. My mom didn't pass from a stroke. So this was shocking.
Yeah.
And she just looked at me as a matter of fact and said, because you need to ask yourself, why not me? Why not you? Why not have a stroke at 34? Now, when you're in it, right, when you're in the hard, that can come across as offensive. When somebody's going through the hardest of hard, you may not be ready for a question like that. But as soon as you are, as soon as you can open your mind to and lean in with a little bit of curiosity, which I don't know how I did that at the time, but it fascinated me that she asked me that question. And I just leaned in.
Well, and she wouldn't have asked you that question if she didn't think you were ready for it. Even second
Yeah.
session. Do you know what I mean? she's like getting the energy from you that this is a question that can be asked. And so that's it's a brave, but it's so cool.
Yeah, it
So
was
cool.
brave. And I love now the people that, are ready to answer that for themselves. Because once you can lean into the why not, that's where your biggest learning lessons are going to be. I
Mhm.
mean, versus having the different mentality, which is why me,
Mhm.
which I've seen a lot of stroke survivors adapt to, which is, that victim mentality, which is a topic that I'm very passionate about and speak to different groups about is the victim mentality. Because as I started to um, share my brand and my business and put myself out there, in 21, I would do podcast interviews. So I would be guests, and not all the time, but enough people would unintentionally call me a stroke victim instead of stroke survivor. It was very unintentional.
Mhm.
I didn't stop them then, but it was certainly triggering for me. And so I paid attention to that because I'm like, I'm still here.
Right. Right.
I'm right. I'm not, I would only be a victim if it took my life.
Right. Oh my
And,
gosh. I
and
just have to
yet,
say that for people watching the series, this is connecting so much to what Sarah shared last night about the power of the words we use and taking time, stepping back and taking time to making sure we're using the words that we really want to use. You're demonstrating it right here. It's amazing.
thank you. Yeah.
Hmm.
And if I saw a lot of people, stroke survivors adapt the victim mentality.
Hmm.
And so I had not when it came to my own recovery. However, when I started to explore, if I really want to talk about this topic and why it's so triggering to me and how to reframe it, can I own and acknowledge a time that I adapted a victim mentality? And that's a hard exploration to do. And yet again, I leaned in and had to own the fact that, in 2016, I'm coming off the most successful year of my sales career, right? I'm hitting the President's Club and thinking I'm at the top. And then in 2017, it felt so much harder to try and earn another one. So I'm grinding. I'm chasing the numbers every month. I'm blaming things outside of my control. I'm not obnoxious about it, but now being able to reflect back, it's like, of course I was doing that, right? I wasn't ready to look in the mirror and saying, what can I own here? What can I control here in each phone call I make, each meeting I go to, each decision maker I have a conversation with? What can I own versus blame them for saying no to the deal, right?
Right, right.
So, or another sales rep that has a bigger territory than I do, that had the better accounts. No, they didn't, you know, but it was easy for me to say that. So I had to own that. And that's part of the work. And so when I go out and speak about what I call overcoming the victim mentality and embracing your inner warrior mentality, here's what victim mentality looks like and sounds like and feels like, and here's where it comes from. And I think this is really important to share with your audience. And it's always the most uncomfortable part when I'm speaking to a group or a crowd or an audience and say it's something that you have not dealt with, healed from, or resolved in your life. That's the part of you that's playing the victim mentality role. If you haven't dealt with something, you have unhealed pain within you. And
Mhm.
those parts can play out pretty loudly as we see each and every day with people that we're around, whether it's locally in our communities or on the biggest stage. There's a lot of victim mentality playing out.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And how we I'd love to hear have you just dive into a couple strategies or tips here for people because this is really powerful.
Yeah, thank you. The biggest, the biggest foundational skill someone can have is to continuously build their self-awareness muscle. Self-awareness is key. It is a muscle that you continuously build. And I saw a stat the other day that only about 15% of people are actually self-aware. There's a way bigger number of people that think that they are.
Oh.
But the more self-aware you are, it gives you all your control and power. And so I talk a lot about that and really paying attention to how many thoughts we have a day. and which is 60 to 70,000 thoughts a day. None of them are true until we make them true, until we tie a meaning to the thought
Mhm, mhm.
that can grip you, which, so then it's a lot of work that I do with clients. It's like, I don't, it may be several times a day that you have to check in with yourself and say, wait a second, is that true? Is that really true what I'm saying right now? And then paying attention to the thoughts and how they make you feel, right? And then what actions are you taking from that? It's really kind of backwards. And I think Mel Robbins does it really beautifully, where she's like, instead of you have a thought, the thought makes you feel something, and then you're going to take an action or an inaction based on that feeling. Flip it, take an action. That's going to make you feel something. And then you may have more positive thoughts from the action you just took, or learning lessons that you just took from that action. So there's a lot of self-awareness work. And the other one, which you touched on a little bit, which is self-dialogue,
Mhm,
inner
mhm.
dialogue. The conversations we have with ourselves each and every day really sets the tone for how we're going to interact with everybody else. But it starts with us looking in the mirror every single day.
Yeah, for
What are you
sure.
saying to yourself? How kind are you to yourself, right? Are you, as women, we're really good at beating ourselves up. And when you look in the mirror each day, how kind is that? That's not setting a good tone. I'm
Right.
super guilty of it. I've gotten a lot better at it. But so I'll offer, here are examples of what reframing inner dialogue can sound like for, instead of saying I can't, or I'm not this, I'm not good enough, or I'm not ready enough, or I'm not qualified enough. Whatever thought you have that you believe, your brain's going to find evidence of why that's true.
Right.
So the quicker you can catch the thought and flip it, your brain's going to find evidence of why that is true, why you are good enough, right? Why you are qualified enough to go for that next role,
Mhm, mhm.
whether you are
Yeah,
strong enough, whatever that is. Those are two strategies I talk a lot about.
yeah, I love it. Um, Again, looking at this series, our second speaker, Jenny Song, she she actually tracked a D1 basketball team. She tracked their communication, either what they said to themselves or to their teammates in practices and games. So she kept this log and this tracking of it, and then she worked on them to change their language patterns. And that was
Powerful.
so, so cool to hear about. But that's exactly what you're talking here. I've done that too with one of my coaches for 3 weeks. I analyzed the thoughts in my head. And it was a real exercise in hearing what's really going on in there. Let's
It's
lift up the
wild.
hood, right? Let's
Yeah, because a
really,
lot of what the percentages, a lot of them are negative and they're reoccurring. It's only like 5% that come to the conscious mind and that are actual truth. The rest is really not, because we've made it not be. We've believed these old patterns, these thought patterns and these loops, and they come from somewhere. It's not like you just developed them as an adult.
well, and it's interesting too. Like I was a little bit, I don't know if the right word is Pollyanna, but I literally wake, and to this day, I wake up every day extremely happy, like every day of my life from the time I was born. So when I was in college, I was like, my boyfriend was asking me, so how are you today? I'm like, oh, it's a wonderful day. It's so beautiful. Like I'm going on and on, right? And he said, it can't be beautiful all the time like that. And it actually cut me to shreds,
Mm.
as if I wasn't telling the truth or something. Like it was like so weird. I got into a very weird space actually, because literally I wake up in joy. And and I go back to that, and I went into a dark moment my sophomore year in high school, in college. And it stemmed from that one little thing that somebody said that like poked at me. It was so weird. So how other people, how they communicate us, and how other people sometimes what they say or how they view us and what they say can really mess with things too. It's fascinating.
It can. And when, as you say all that, what comes up for me right now is continued self-awareness, right? Because of course we can see now how other people talk to us or other people or the way they act. And I don't take any of it as personal as I used to take it.
Right.
Like that's their stuff, right? That's their projection.
Right.
That's
Exactly.
not my truth. And it has taken me a lot of not time, but work to get to where I am today. And it's continued work, right? You
Yeah.
never reach this level of self-awareness and you're done.
Yeah.
It could be every single interaction you have is, or somebody you haven't seen in a long time and you interact with them and that could feel a certain way.
Yeah, definitely.
And you've got the power and control to kind of make a choice on how you feel about that, how you want to respond to that person, right? It's versus letting them have any power over you.
Right. That's right. It's really fascinating.
Yeah, it is.
And the older you get, the more you realize nobody's thinking about you and none of that matters.
Totally. And that's one of the best books that I feel that I've read that's a great reminder of that is the Four Agreements.
Oh, right.
Have you read the Four Agreements?
Years ago when it first came out. Yeah.
It's so good.
Mhm.
Yes. Because it's profound. Don't take anything personal.
Right.
Nothing.
Yeah.
Right? They're like, even if they tell you you're great, don't take it personal because you already know
Yeah.
you're great.
Yeah.
You don't need someone else's validation, which is something
Mhm.
I've worked a lot on because I looked for a lot of external validation.
Yeah. We're raised to look for external validation
Yeah.
from our teachers, our coaches, our private coaches, from all of it. And it's something I talk about with my clients that get caught up in it. And they'll say, really, the only validation you need is whatever is in your faith foundation in you. Like, what is
Hmm.
that?
That's it.
What is that? Because no one else can even validate you, even if you wanted them to. It
Yeah.
just doesn't really happen.
And that's not, that takes work. That takes
Hmm.
practice. That takes understanding. That takes your own inner work to
Yeah.
build your own. I think the biggest muscle I've built for me is trust, like trusting myself
Yeah.
versus putting
Self-trust.
so much trust into other people. I did that a lot in professional sales, like in building trusting relationships, and I understood the importance of that. And yeah, I did this small group program a couple of years ago, and we did this exercise. I'll share this because it was a profound moment. There was four of us, and the coach asked us, okay, who are the top three people you trust the most in your life? Write down the top three people. So we all write them down. And then who do you not trust? Write those people down. It may be your mailman. Who is it that you don't trust? Or something pretty, a person pretty major that you had to cut out your life, whoever that is. So then we had to go around and share. And the youngest person in our group, she was like in her early 20s, had already opened her own nail salon in our city. That was already impressive. And the coach asked her, who do you trust the most? She said, me. And I was like, what a great answer.
Right.
We we all should be able to say that.
Ah,
And yet, I bet if we asked that question to 99% of the people, they wouldn't put themselves first. Maybe that I
ah,
don't know what that number would be, but I didn't think of that.
yeah.
Maybe not.
Right. Right. I had a coach once say to me, Elle, you're really good at keeping your promises to everybody you serve, your kids, your husband, everybody you
Mm,
serve. But what about the promises to yourself?
right. That's a great point because
Yeah,
what I'm like you. If someone's gonna hold me accountable, I'm gonna stay accountable to them.
I know.
Why do I
Yeah,
not hold myself accountable?
I know.
There's work
It's
to be done
fascinating.
there.
Yeah. And also things like I take things off my list. I'm very spontaneous. And like 35 years ago, I learned about the Rideau Canal in Ottawa. My son calls on a Thursday night. Do you want to go to Montreal to the Four Nations hockey tournament? And we'll stop in Ottawa and skate the Rideau, which I've always wanted to do. So
Mm,
lifelong dream, been 35 years after, skated on one of the bloodiest, coldest, blizzardy days ever in Canada, right?
yeah,
But it's like we get to do these things and we get to say yes and we get to,
right.
really move into life with a great deal of fun, which we tend to do as a family, which is great. But um Jennifer, we're about to close out, but I want to know how can people get a hold of you and just share a little bit there before we close out here.
Yeah, thanks so much. This has been so good.
I love it. We could talk for
I so
another
good.
hour.
Yeah, thank you. I'm very active on LinkedIn, so please connect with me on LinkedIn. Happy to have a conversation, do a meet and greet, create connection. I love that. And then my website is justcommitcoaching.com. So you can easily go there and sign into my Just Commit community. I send out an email once a week with a couple of journal prompts and sharing stories, upcoming events that I've got going on. I host master classes every other month. Mostly work with high powered female sales professionals and female leaders, and yet at the end of the day we're women, we're human beings and wearing a lot of hats, and I help support them in reminding them who they are without what they do, because we
Oh,
forget
that's
that.
good. That's so good. Wow. Well, thank you so much, Jennifer. We're going to close out this Facebook and close out the recording and open it up for the people who are on Zoom. Okay.
Thank you so much.
All right.
Thank you.
We'll close this. We'll stop.